Welcome back to the Blue Stable Podcast, guys, the official Colts podcast of Fansided. Shout out to Fansided, guys. Destin, as always, you guys know Destin. I never know, man. I can never see my eyes. Like, do people not know what my eyes look like or anything? Like, cause I need to get new glasses, man. These are getting bad. I have a prescription that I got at the eye doctor, and it's just literally sitting on my nightstand. I just haven't gotten to get it. But this is not Michael's eyes visitation here. We got a special guest. For some reason, he hasn't been on lately, but now we finally got him on. You know, we joke with Rashad about he's gone Hollywood and everything, but this guy really has gone Hollywood. We had to call his agent. We had to get a schedule going. We had to go all through these guidelines, man. But Zach Hicks, the man of the hour, Mr. Hollywood, how are you, man?
I'm doing good, man. A little worn down trying to get this draft guide and everything written up, but can't complain. Can't complain at all, man.
Destin, how are you?
Yes, I'm doing well. Zach Hicks' agent, I believe her name is Hannah.
Oh gosh,
I believe she has some relation to the talent Zach Hicks of some sort. It's great to have Zach on. Always great to talk draft. Always great to talk this off season. It's going to be an interesting one. I mean, I feel like every week, even if a move hasn't happened yet, the Colts find a way to be in the news. Usually the same person is the reason. Carson Wentz, man, greatest Colts quarterback of all time.
Describe all time.
I mean, if you only included 2021 to 2022, I would say Carson Wentz is the greatest quarterback in that span for the Colts.
I would probably agree with you, man.
Yeah, for sure. Better than Ellinger.
I still don't even know why he's in the NFL, honestly. But
now he is better at Carson at throwing 10 yards and shorter. Let's give him that. Let's give him his dues.
Let's give him his dues. Yes,
you might be better at that. Well, the thing is, it's not like Wentz is bad at it. He just doesn't do it.
Yeah.
So it's like an NA. Like Ellinger gets like a C grade at best, and Carson gets the old NA. Didn't attempt.
Yep.
Yeah. Not enough data for him to qualify in the rankings. Guys, we have a loaded show. Draft content as always. We're not going to talk anything else. When you see Zach Hicks on the show, you know we're going to talk draft content. Destin Adams is going to get schooled like always. Zach is going to destroy us in conversations, okay? So let's go ahead and get it started, guys. We're going to talk about the top 5 needs of the Colts this offseason. I'm actually going to hand the reins over to Zach. I think Destin and I have talked enough on this podcast. So the fans already know what we're going to say probably, but Zach, the top 5 needs for the Colts this offseason are?
Well, number one, I feel like it has to be quarterback. I mean, we kind of just joked around about it right there, but there's so much uncertainty with the quarterback of the Colts going into next year. Now, will Carson come back? Will they trade for a big fish? Will they draft a guy? Will they sign someone? They have to figure that position out, whether it is Carson or not. So quarterback obviously is number one. It's number one when it comes to any team, but especially the Colts right now. Number 2, I'd probably say wide receiver. Outside of Michael Pittman Jr., they just really need another weapon out there. I still love Paris Campbell, and I love what Ballard said the other day that they're not ready to give up on him, but you can't rely on him at this point. You have to bring in more talent. And luckily, it's a good free agent class and a good draft class to kind of need a wide receiver. After that, I'd probably, there's a couple positions I think are all kind of in the same tier. I would probably go left tackle after that, though, just because, Eric Fisher, for the good stretches he had and for how good he was in the run game, it was kind of a train wreck in the pass game. We kind of saw that a lot last year. And I am a firm believer in Matt Pryor. I think Matt Pryor did some really good things last year, and I think he can, at least hold the fort down if he had to, but they need to get something. Like, they did get someone young there. They are already investing so much money at the rest of the offensive line. Now, I'm not saying this needs to be a 2nd round pick or even a 3rd round pick, but you have to get some young talent there to develop, maybe even behind Matt Pryor. So I actually would put that pretty high. After that, again, there's so many positions you could go here. Tight end, I think, is one that's up there, but I'm honestly going to go a little against the grain and say safety. with number 4. Julian Blackman and Cary Willis, I think, are 2 very talented safeties, and I'm really excited for them in this new defense under Gus Bradley. But neither of those guys have ever played a full season in the NFL. Cary Willis has always been around like 12, 13 games, 14 games. Julian Blackman's coming off another significant injury in his leg. And we kind of saw what happened this past year when Blackman went down. We had to see Andrew Sendejo for the whole season. And, the Colts need to do whatever they can not to have that situation happen again.
We only reference him as mullet guy on this podcast. So we would appreciate if that is all that is said about that man.
Hey, man, he had a good game against the Patriots and nothing else after that or before that, but I'll give him his due against the Patriots.
Right. And then after that, I'd probably go edge after that. I know it's kind of weird to have this one so low because I do think the Colts need another edge, and I definitely think it needs to be like a veteran edge that they're bringing in. But I do think under Gus Bradley's new scheme, having, second year out of Dio, second year out of Kwity Paye, maybe bring back like someone like Tyquan Lewis, I do see more potential in this group than probably what we ever saw under Matt Eberflus. So yes, I do think they need to add more to that, maybe figure out if they're going to keep Toure or Vanagoo going forward as well. But I actually kind of believe in the edge group, but I do think they need to add a veteran. But the young guys, I'm pretty impressed with, so I don't think it's as huge of a draft need or anything like that.
So what we're hearing is kicker is not a need.
Kicker is not a real position.
We shouldn't trade up.
Real position.
We shouldn't trade up in the first for a kicker.
There's no kicker. I mean, there's a punter in this class who's pretty.
Hey, good, okay. You got me there, Destin. Where are we leaning when it comes to the top 5 needs for the Colts in 2022?
Yeah, I mean, I think number 1 is going to be a pretty easy consensus for everyone. Quarterback. If you don't have the solution at quarterback, I think quarterback should probably always be your top need as a franchise, even if you have a stopgap in place. So quarterback's got to be number 1. Number 2 is going to be receiver, just because, again, I mean, you guys have heard us on the podcast multiple times. We have a hard time naming 5 teams that have worse receiver rooms than the Colts. We struggle. We've tried, and if you take Pittman out and you take everyone's top weapon out and then just read off receiver rooms, it's going to get hard to name 3. So I mean, receiver has to be 2. For 3, I'm going to go edge at 3, just because I kind of like. You spoke about Pryor a little bit, who I think can be a guy who starts when necessary. And I just really think it needs to find a way to be a rookie somehow, some way. If it's this year, if it's next year, like I think for long term, that tackle spot needs to be a rookie to optimize just the amount of contracts we have on this line right now. I'm going to go tackle at 4. And I'm going to go at 5. I'm going to go corner instead of safety still. I like a lot of these corners on this roster for sure. And I think Isaiah Rodgers had a heck of a season playing on the outside, a better season than I think I ever would have imagined him on the outside. I still think he would be best used as a rotational outside guy who can play inside and out, and getting a guy opposite of Rock that can be that consistent outside piece personally. But I mean, I'm never going to be anti Isaiah Rodgers getting snaps. Like that's just never going to be my niche. So I'll go corner instead of the safety route. So a little bit different than Zach's.
Quarterback, obviously going to be number 1. I'm going to go with Zach and put left tackle at number 2, only because at edge, you do see some young guys. You got Dio, you got Kwity. What's going to happen with Kamoko? What's going to happen with Tyquan? I'd really like for you to choose one or the other instead of going with both. Want to bring some different bodies in personally, but when it comes to left tackle, I'm fine with Pryor, plugging in right there. But I would really like to see if there's a tackle in the draft that we can get. We're not going to pay any money in free agency. I highly believe that. And I want to go young at left tackle. I want to find the guy of the future already. When it comes to number 3, I'm actually going to go corner. I'm actually going to go corner for all the reasons that Destin mentioned. Kenny, Isaiah, they're going to be your guys on the inside, although Isaiah did really show some good stuff on the outside. I want to find another guy that's going to, mirror Rocky Sin a little bit, keep Kenny more on the inside. Definitely think, finding a number 2 corner is going to be, or number 3, however you want to order that. I really want to see a corner come out, whether that's in free agency or the draft. I'm going to probably put wide receiver. Wide receiver's got to be there. I want to say maybe just weapon. I don't even care who you grab, as long as it's someone good that creates separation and that can catch the ball consistently. That's all I care about. And then it's going to be safety. I want to roll with my dogs, Cary, Willis, and Julian Blackman, but Julian Blackman, 2 major knee injuries or lower leg injuries in 3 years. That's not a good thing. So I wouldn't be surprised if you went in free agency and grabbed a vet, maybe a Kareem Jackson. I think that would be like a solid fit here in Indianapolis. But other than that, those are going to be my top 5.
So, quick question. So Zach kind of talked about how the edge room, you would like to add a vet to that room. You'd like to go out and get a free agent, not just draft another guy to join the young room already, as well as anyone they bring back. I'm already on the bring Toure back train, so I got to stay consistent there. But do you think we'll struggle to get some vets to come play for such a young defensive line coach? Do you think that could be an issue for some guys coming to play for a guy that could be younger than some of them? We haven't been able to find an exact age for Nate Ollie. We've tried. We've established he's probably somewhere in the 29 to 32 range, looking at when he graduated high school. Zach might have a better answer on his age, maybe, but that's what we've been able to find.
Yeah, I don't think age of a position coach is really that much of a factor. Honestly, it might be a better sign because it's easier to relate to a guy who's around your age or a little bit younger. But I think there's a big misconception when it comes to position coaches and what they actually do for a team. When you get to the NFL, you're not developing guys. Don't get me wrong, you want guys to take, like Kwity Paye, we always said was raw, very raw player. So yes, we need him to develop in the NFL, but it's not the position coach's job to develop. It's the player's job to develop. It's the player's job to put the work in the offseason, put the work in the film room to develop his game. The position coach is just there to put him in right positions, control the subs, and control the advanced scouting and help in the film room. It's not there to make sure that your hand striking at this right thing or whatever. It's not like it's a bunch of practice drills or anything like that. So when it comes to the age and stuff like that, or it comes with this is the first time defensive line coach, I don't really think that's that much of an issue for players or for anything really around the league. As long as it's kind of communicated that Nate Ollie is a guy with high energy who knows the game of football and can help them in the film room, I think that's the only thing that really matters.
And then my last question before we kind of move on to our next subject a little bit. I'm sure anyone listening has kind of listened or read up on Chris Ballard's presser at the Combine. An interesting moment that I had that kind of just brings up possibly a wider conversation. He said that Danny Pinter is going to have a chance to slide over and play at that right guard spot. It may have not actually been the Combine conversation. It may have been when he was on
with Dan Dockich.
He was on with Dockich this morning, I believe, actually. And that was when he mentioned that Pinter is going to have the chance to slide over. I thought Glowinski was going to be let him walk in free agency just because of money purposes. I thought Chris Reed was going to be the person that got the first crack at the right guard spot, I guess. So do you think they're looking at other right guard options that are not just on the team, or do you think that could become a need other than Pinter and Reed and all these guys?
I mean, I could definitely see them bringing back Reed. And if you bring back Reed, as you guys all know, I'm a huge Chris Reed fan. Which is why this had to be talked about. Right. I've always been one of the biggest guys on Chris Reed, even before he got to Indy. And even if he came back, though, it's hard to kind of say that it's officially his job over a guy like Danny Pinter. Pinter's a guy who's gotten better every single year, has great athleticism, had some really good games when he stepped in at center this year. So I think there is a feasible option where you could bring back Chris Reed and have him and Pinter kind of competing for the snaps there. Maybe even do a rotation like they did a little bit with Glowinski and Reed at some points in the season. But I think I've always been with you too, that I don't think Glowinski was going to come back after, this past deal with the Colts. I think he's going to hit the market and get a decent deal from someone else. But yeah, it could be Chris Reed coming back. It could be a draft pick. It could be another veteran on the market they bring in. I think they're going to add competition, but I think Pinter will definitely be right there at the center of that competition for that right guard spot.
So after 2018, Mark Lewinsky received a 3-year, $18 million deal. Do we think that he gets more than that for less years?
No, probably not. I would say maybe close to it, maybe like 2 for 10, okay. 2 for 11 or something like that. Because, there's always O-line needy teams. And I know people in Indy have always said like, oh, Glowinski's the weak link, Glowinski sucks, like all that kind of stuff. But he's always been a pretty solid offensive lineman, kind of an above average run blocker, below average pass blocker. And there's going to be teams around the league that'll want that. So yeah, I think, 2 years, like $5 million a year, $4.5 million a year, something like that. I think he'll get a nice little deal.
Yeah, Glowinski's pockets won't be hurt anytime soon.
Yeah.
No.
Hey, I was consistent after the year. I thought in 2021, Glowinski was our most consistent offensive lineman this year. Ryan Kelly, Braden Smith, Quentin Nelson. We all know Eric Fisher.
Eric Fisher was consistent. Eric Fisher was consistent.
He was consistently bad. That's what it was.
I'm just saying, if we're gonna change the subject a little bit.
Okay. That's fair. That's fair. He was bad, but I thought Glowinski was at least consistently good. Let me change the wording. Consistently good for the offensive line in the Indianapolis Colts. So, guys, we're gonna get into a topic at the positions of quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, defensive end. We're going to highlight one player each from the free agent class and the draft. So we're actually going to start with free agency. Free agency is going to get going here in the next couple of weeks. So we'll go free agency first, and then we'll follow with the draft. So Zach, let me start with you at quarterback. Which one of these free agent options could best fit the Colts?
Pass. No, I'm just kidding. Free agent. I mean, but for both these quarterback questions, even when we get to the draft, it's just going to be brutal answers across the board. But I think one name to kind of look out for would be Marcus Mariota. I think Marcus Mariota is a guy that Chris Ballard has held in high regard in the past. I know there was some pretty serious smoke last season about the Colts trading for Mariota before they ended up trading for Carson Wentz. I know for a fact that deal almost went down for Mariota. For a much lesser price than the Colts paid for Wentz. So I do know that there is kind of a respect there for Mariota and Mariota's game. And I think, I'm not saying he's much better than Wentz or even that he's better at all than Carson Wentz, but if you have a team that's trying to get more of a lead by example type guy, more of a guy who is safer, who will take the check down, who will operate an offense kind of in a very safe level. So basically the complete opposite of Carson Wentz. Marcus Mariota is a pretty good option there. So I'm not advocating for him at all. And I have to keep putting it out there. Every time we talk about Marcus Mariota, I'm not really advocating for him. But I do think he's a guy who could pique the Colts' interest. And I know Chris Ballard has had interest in him in the past.
Dustin, where are you going?
Oh, so where are we trying to go with this? Are we trying to say who Destin Adams would pick out of the free agency group, or who I think would be the best fit, like Indy, Ballard, Reich wise?
Well, I don't necessarily think you have GM outside of your bedroom wall, so I think we're going to go with Chris Ballard.
I can add it to my Twitter bio right now, but it is not on my bedroom door. I don't think the wife would allow me to make that change either, so I'm going to leave that off. But I'll say I have like a 1A, 1B. I mean, I think Jameis Winston's the most intriguing, just like talent-wise, but I think the problem that comes into hand is if the problem with Carson is that he was a little bit too up and down and you never knew who you were going to get. And Jameis Winston's pretty much that. Even if I think he has the most upside of these free agency guys. I think the other guy that I think would make the most sense if they ended up going the free agency route is the former MVP Mitchell Trubisky. I think when I've gone back and watched his tape, there was actually more good moments than I probably was expecting when I was going through and watching it. I think he's a guy that would definitely take the checkdowns. I think he's a guy that was actually pretty good at the medium range level of throws. I thought he was actually pretty excellent when I was going through and watching his Bears tape a little bit on it. And I mean, when it came to the deep ball, we kind of understood where that was going to go. But I mean, I think he's a guy that definitely could come in and get a lot out of some of the weapons we didn't get to see this last year. I think Hines would do really well with him. We saw Tariq Cohen have career years with Mitchell Trubisky even. So I think he's a guy that could make sense.
So I'm not entirely sure if this guy is a free agent, but is he available?
No. Next.
Okay. Because my girlfriend actually got me this as a late Valentine's Day present. And I'm not going to lie, I actually
this
teared
year
up when I saw it. Yeah, I just got it today.
Is she trying to break your heart on
That's
Valentine's
what I'm saying.
Day?
Are you trying to tell me something? Are you trying to break my heart or something? But I'm definitely I just miss this guy so much. Okay, so he's not an option then.
No.
Okay. All right. If
done.
I had to go
it's over, man.
If I had to go free agent, man, I hear you on Marcus Mariota. Mitchell Trubisky is definitely interesting. I mean, apparently he's a marry your daughter type of guy, which is what we've seen on Twitter. I'm gonna go with some swagger. How about Fitzmagic? How about Ryan Fitzpatrick? Get him down here, get some Fitzmagic going into the MVP conversation for the first 2 weeks, and then come back to earth. I'd like him. I think he's an electric quarterback when he's actually good, when he has his good games. If you just decide, if you struck out on everything and you traded Wentz, went with Ryan Fitzpatrick, I mean, even if we kept Wentz, I'd probably still go with Ryan Fitzpatrick because he's a better quarterback than Sam Ehlinger. So you upgrade your backup position. I'll stick with Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's a leader. He's electric. He has a voice. He's always relentless as a quarterback, never afraid to take the deep shots, always, smart with the football sometimes. I'll take him. I think he'll be a good culture fit. Now, guys, listen to the names all three of us just read off. It is not that great of a free agent quarterback class, all right? Unfortunately, he's not walking through that door anytime soon. But if we wanted to stay with the free agent class, all right, let's get with the wide receivers, okay? Destin, I'm going to start with you here, all right? Wide receivers, okay? We know you have a favorite in this class.
Well, aren't we going to cover a draft prospect for the quarterbacks?
Oh, no, we're sticking with free agent first.
You want to do all free agents and then all draft prospects? Okay, I like
Absolutely.
it. Switch it up. I like it. I mean, receiver-wise, I'm going to say pretty consistent on this. I mean, Allen Robinson is a guy that I think I would go out and get. People are going to bring up that he had the down year. I would bring up that you could tell he was very disgruntled this past year. He was playing on the evil franchise tag that should be absolutely abolished. I can't stand the franchise tag. That is my daily rant about the franchise tag. So you're welcome. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. But Allen Robinson's a guy that I think before this past year was viewed as like a lock top 10 receiver in the NFL. Great route runner, great hands. I think he would be a great guy to put opposite of Pittman, great guy with experience. And I know he's a guy that the Colts have had interest in the past. They got outbid when he went to Chicago, but they were in on Allen Robinson that past year. Now, the issue for me with him would be, why would he want to come here before the quarterback is figured out? And hopefully that is figured out in time for that to be in the process. But I mean, Allen Robinson has gone from Blake Bortles to Mitchell Trubisky, to Justin Fields, to whoever he is with this next year. And if his options are Marcus Mariota, Jameis Winston, Mitchell Trubisky, that's a little tough sell for that kind of guy. But I think he's the best fit, in my opinion, in the free agency class.
What we thinking?
I'm going to go with the smaller guy because I think the way I'm going to go about this, just guys who kind of I could see the Colts going after. And a guy I'll throw out there is Byron Pringle from the Chiefs. I know he's not a big name. He's always been a wide receiver 3 or 4 for most of his career. But kind of when we talk about this Colts receiver room, it's not just that they need another guy outside of Michael Pittman Jr. They need depth too. They don't have very good depth. So my plan of attack for wide receiver would be draft a receiver in the 2nd or 3rd round. Bring in a guy like Byron Pringle, and then you can just really improve that room. And Byron Pringle is a guy who he had a career year this past year. I think he had like 600 or 700 yards receiving. I think he had over almost 10 touchdowns if you include the playoffs. Had a really strong year. I think he was 3rd in the NFL or 2nd in the NFL in separation per yards or separation per route run, I believe, according to Next Gen Stats. I think it was like 4 yards separation per route or something like that. He can play inside out. He's a good special teamer, just a really reliable player that I think would add so much depth to this wide receiver room that just, again, it doesn't have depth or consistency behind Michael Pittman Jr. So adding a guy like Pringle isn't the only step that needs to be taken, but it's a logical step that just improves everything. And I believe he has connections he comes from Kansas City. Ballard has connections to Kansas City. I think there was a lot of kind of research done on him back when he came out as well. So I think Byron Pringle makes a ton of sense, and he would just be a really good depth piece to bring into this team.
I'm going to go with Jakobi Meyers, coming from New England. I think, he's been underrated his entire career. Going into New England, he was really true. That was his first job truly as, I guess you could be a number one, with Nelson Aguilar, N'Keal Harry, had those 2 dynamic tight ends that they didn't want to use at all. And he actually had a pretty good year. Solid hands, solid route runner, great run blocker. He's been developing each year. I would throw decent money at him. I think, this is a solid free agent class for wide receivers. I think Ballard's probably going to miss out on the top ones, like, Destin said with Allen Robinson, I think. But as far as fit goes, I think Myers is a good compliment on the outside, opposite of Michael Pittman. I would like to see a speedy guy come in. Of course, we all heard, they brought it up earlier in the show that, we're not going to, rely on Paris Campbell. We're not going to put too much on him. And I like that. So Jakobi Meyers is definitely an interesting one to me, but I do like his fit in Indianapolis a lot. Next is, this really needs to be addressed, the tight end position. Okay. We need dynamic. We need speed. We need skill. We need big guys who know how to use their bodies and catch the ball and know what route they're running. So Zach, I'll start with you on this one, man. Tight ends, somewhat of a questionable class, maybe so, but who is the best fit for the Colts in free agency?
Yeah, I actually think it's a really good class. I think from top to bottom, you can get a starting tight end pretty easily in this free agency class. And obviously some of these guys will re-sign with their teams, but for the most part, I think it's a really good class. And we could talk about dynamic, we could talk about young and adding it, but I think we all know who's actually going to sign with the Colts, and it's probably going to be Zach Ertz, and that's who I think the Colts will pursue. Zach Ertz just makes a ton of sense. He is a super close connection to Frank Reich. Him and Frank Reich, still talk all the time and are good friends, and they have that great relationship. And then Zach Ertz, it's not a flashy name. It's not a name that kind of inspires everyone to be like, oh, great, we just added a young explosive weapon. But it's a guy who is a former All-Pro who has had a lot of success in the league, understands how to get open, and he can be a mentor for a young guy like Kylan Granson. So whether it's a huge contract or like maybe like a mid-level one, I think Zach Ertz will find his way to Indy this offseason. I think that or Casey Hayward would be my highest bets for free agent player landing in Indy with everything the Colts got going on.
So when I'm looking at the tight end spot, I'm trying to think of guys that the Colts have gone to that have ended up working out well for them, and then just knowing Chris Ballard and how he operates free agency. I mean, I remember a certain tight end they went after, was a former first-round pick, wasn't really able to live up to the hype on his first team, ends up coming here, has some great success, and then his drop issues leads to him going to Pittsburgh, and his name was Eric Ebron. So looking at this free agency class, I'm just trying to think of like who Ballard could look at and think he could help in that way. That was a former first round pick, hasn't been able to stay healthy, is a very explosive athlete when he's able to be on the field. And that's OJ Howard to me. I just think OJ Howard has that athleticism and just that. I think it's just that cheap, low risk, high reward type guy that Ballard looks for a lot when he's going to the free agency market. I think there's guys I'd rather have than OJ Howard here. I mean, Mike Gesicki would be a great guy to go grab for Indianapolis. Do I think he's going to end up leaving, or do I think he's going to be in the price range for the Colts? I don't. And there's other guys too. Dalton Schultz is probably going to demand a lot on the market after this last year. I think OJ Howard is a guy that's going to fall closer to their price range, and somebody they could actually go after. A guy who I think will get more money than he probably should, that I think has a chance to be good wherever he goes. Personally, though, is Evan Ingram as well. Is just another guy that I really like.
Wow.
He named all of them, so it's hard for you to.
Right. I mean, I was literally just about to say Evan Ingram, bro. I was literally just about to say that.
You still can't. I didn't talk about him much.
I'm actually gonna say, first off, excuse me. I'm actually gonna start off by saying I will be perfectly fine if Jack Doyle retires and you let Mo Alley-Cox walk. I will be perfectly fine.
Wait, you would be fine with Mo Alley-Cox walking? Aren't you like his biggest fan?
Oh, Zach, he
loves him, right? Doesn't he have a jersey of him? Like a new jersey even.
Hey, I will say this right here, right now. Michael likes to hate on Mo Alley-Cox. But this past year in fantasy, I'm pretty sure Michael took Mo Alley-Cox in like the 5th round of fantasy in our draft.
What? No.
Michael,
no.
I can go look for the board, but it's pretty close. Somewhere in that 5th to 7th round.
Look, I'm going into it right now.
He's a little bit of a closeted Mo Alley-Cox.
Bro, y'all took all the tight ends. Come on.
Hey, Michael, it's okay, but okay. But Zach, to answer your question, Michael, once we were drafting the Colts players last offseason, we were drafting them in the point of
basketball, right?
To making a basketball roster. Michael was blessed with the first pick and didn't take Mo Alley-Cox.
Who did you take?
Quentin Nelson. I took Quentin Nelson, right?
Oh my gosh, dude. Mo Alley-Cox is such a better basketball player than Quentin Nelson.
No, but I took Quentin Nelson, right?
Mo Alley-Cox, I mean, yes, you did.
Okay,
but Mo Alley-Cox was a D1 basketball player in a basketball draft.
A very good D1 basketball player.
A very good D1 basketball player that had to go play football, right?
Well, yeah, you know how many people make it in the NBA?
Yeah, I was gonna say I'll give him credit. He made it to the college level.
I'll say let me open the list here. Antonio Gates, Jimmy Graham. I mean, we can go down the list here.
Only 2% of, or maybe not even that, make it to the NBA out of all college players. So, but I will be perfectly fine. I really need some new faces, some new blood, and more athletic blood. At least people who know how to use their athleticism. Mo Alley-Cox doesn't know how to. I'm all for going new at the position. So a couple of names, or not really a couple, I'll actually change from Evan Ingram. And I'll go to David Njoku, a guy who is athletic. I see no reason for him to return to Cleveland. There is no competitive reason in the world. Leadership, relationship, style, usage. There's no reason for him to go back to Cleveland.
I can think of a reason.
Did he just have 800 yards last year? I think he got used pretty well.
I mean, I can think of a pretty big reason, though, why most people go to bad situations, and it's money.
The money.
Well, isn't he like getting talked that he might get franchise tagged? Like, they're apparently willing to pay over $10 million a year for him.
So yeah,
I will. Say
I love the fit too. I would love him in Indy, but I don't think he's going to touch.
I'll take David Njoku, but going back to Evan Ingram, look, he's athletic, but damn it, man, he can't stay off the dang table in the trainer's room. He can't. He's always seeing the trainer. He's always getting with them pregame, halftime, postgame. I'll take him on a flyer. 1 year, maybe $3 million, or a 2 year, maybe like kind of like what Eric Ebron got. 2 years.
He's making more than that.
He's a big name coming from New York. He's gonna be looking for the change.
People love speed at tight end, man. If
I had my way, I would trade for Irv Smith, but we don't have a first round pick. So that
first round pick. Michael, I think you just had a little stretch of like, I disagree with every word you said.
That one took a lot of leaps there. I was like, first trade for Irv Smith and then trade a first round pick for Irv Smith. It's like, whoa.
Hey, he's talented, man.
Didn't he go in the second?
ACL, right?
He did go in the second, right?
And he's coming off a torn ACL.
Which I understand. Everybody recovers from a torn ACL.
We're gonna buy on this second round player.
There's probably
first round pick.
There's probably 4 tight ends I would even consider trading a first round pick for.
Waller, Kelsey, Gesicki. The fourth one. I feel like I'm missing an obvious one.
So not Gesicki.
Not Gesicki. I feel like I'm missing an obvious one.
Kittle,
yes, Kittle.
Waller, I would say
Andrews.
Pitts over Andrews, but Andrews is probably there too.
Yeah,
Andrew's
5.
so good, man. He's so good, but he's unavailable. So moving on here, okay. Get better at tight end, please. I got mad love for him, man. You know, he's Mo Alley Cox is beneficial to the Colts.
Don't say you have mad love for him. It's okay to hate him. Don't lie, though.
Hey, Mo Alley Cox is beneficial to the Colts when they're running basketball drills after practice.
You're
Other than that,
gaslighting.
I don't know.
That's a new term that I'm learning. You are gaslighting Mo Alley Cox right now.
Oh my goodness. Let's move on, guys. Defensive ends in the free agency class. This one's going to be a little bit loaded right here. Destin, I think we already know who you're going to go with. So let's start with you.
So I like to have crowned myself the conductor of the Hassan Reddick train last year. I wanted him. I wanted him fiercely. I was heartbroken when he signed elsewhere. It sounds like their Panthers are going to let him test free agency, and I still think he is the type of guy to come bring into this room, a guy who is starting to finally be used as a full pass rusher, and his skills are just showing on the field because Arizona just likes to find ways to misuse players on the defensive side of the ball, it feels like. So Hassan Reddick is the guy I'm going to say still.
So you want to bring Kamoka Terry back and sign Hassan Reddick?
I mean, I guess my main point is I think Toure is going to sign for like a cheap prove-it deal wherever he goes anyway.
Gotcha.
And I think I'd rather that be here than elsewhere.
Gotcha.
It is my personal reason for it.
Gotcha. For my edge guy, I'd probably go with a veteran guy who had a really good season this past year, Melvin Ingram. He's a guy who, when I talk that the Colts need an edge guy who can disrupt, a veteran edge that can cause disruption. I think Melvin Ingram's the perfect fit. He's a guy who has experience in this defense, had his best years under Gus Bradley in LA. And he's kind of fallen off since then. Now he's still a productive player. He had a good season last year with the Chiefs and was, one of the best players in that defense when they were, going through their playoff run. But Melvin Ingram, I think, would be a good guy to bring in. You have a versatile guy who can play on either side, who can rush the passer at a high level. Even if the sack numbers aren't going to be 10, 12 sacks a year, you're going to get a player who, can create finally. And that's what the Colts really need up front. So Melvin Ingram, with his connection to Gus Bradley, if Kansas City lets him walk, which I don't know if they will, I'd really like to see him in Indy.
Yeah, I haven't had a true pass rush since the legendary great Jonathan Newsom left the Colts. Can't even remember what year that was. But for me, I'm going to say Chandler Jones. I mean, that literally just got announced today that it doesn't seem like the Cardinals are going to be able to retain Chandler Jones this free agency. So I'm offering the big money. I mean, yeah, welcome to the club, right? His whole entire family is nothing but athletes. His brother is literally the GOAT of UFC fighters. And his brother kind of fell off the face of the earth, former Colt Arthur Jones. And Chandler, throw the money at him, man. Throw the money at him. Throw it. I don't give a shit what your plan is for Kwity Paye, for Dio Dangbo, or I don't care. Throw it at him. If not, then I would look into Derek Barnett, Emmanuel Ogbah. But my number one guy, Chandler Jones, for all the reasons that we already know.
I could be completely wrong, but did Derek Barnett and Ollie, did their time at Tennessee overlap? I thought so, right?
Oh, Tennessee? You mean in Philly?
Well, when he was was it a grad assistant at Tennessee?
No, I think wasn't he a grad assistant at Eastern Tennessee? I thought it was, or
maybe
no, grad assistant. Yeah, my fault. Eastern Kentucky was where he was a D-line coach.
I think he was a grad assistant at Tennessee. I could be completely wrong.
No, I think he was.
Overlap with Barnett. I don't know if that is correct.
I'm not sure. I know he overlapped in Philly, and he has a lot of respect from all those guys who he coached in Philly. So there's that connection there. But if it goes back to Tennessee even as well, then that's just something else. All right, hey guys, that was the free agent portion. Let's get into the draft portion. Okay, let's start with the quarterbacks. All right, we're trying to get something new, something fresh. I highly doubt it's gonna be a draft quarterback. All right, let me just get that straight right now. But let's talk quarterbacks in the draft. All right, one guy that we all think is gonna be there. I think I want to start off with the bang. Zach, start the fireworks, man. I'm not sure if they're gonna be good fireworks, but let's start the damaging fireworks here. None of them. They all suck. I don't want any of them. No, I think a guy who makes some sense. Again, I don't want to touch this quarterback class. I just don't want to touch it. But I think a guy who could make sense if he's there on day 2 would be Sam Howell. I think Sam Howell is a guy who is talented. He's got plenty of arm. I think he flashes some of the best deep ball ability in this entire class. He's a very good RPO quarterback, which we know the Colts kind of brought a lot of that into their offense this past year with Carson Wentz. And I think he shows a better feel of the game than some of these other quarterbacks. You know, when it comes to, layering throws over the middle, layering throws down the field, attacking certain coverages in certain ways, I think he has a better understanding of the game of football than some of these other quarterbacks that you guys might even mention here. Do I love Howell? Do I think he's a first round pick? No, not at all. But if you're talking late round 2, early round 3 to take a shot on a quarterback, I think Howell would be a fine player. I think there is some upside there. Year 1 might be a little rough with him, but if you bring in maybe a guy like Mariota or something like that and have Howell behind him, I think that could be a formula for success. But in this terrible quarterback class, I guess Sam Howell on day 2 is not too bad.
Destin, give me the goods.
Yeah, so I mean,
don't take my guy either.
I don't know why you always go last if you don't want your guy.
Okay, never mind. I'll go next. Okay, I can't let you know what. Actually, take it. I don't care. I'll find an out. I'll find a way to come up with it.
All right. So I mean, earlier today I reported that a source close to the team had been in communication with me and Rashad McGinnis, who wasn't able to be on with us today, that if the Colts are not able to land any of their desired candidates via trade, or maybe there's some guys on the free agency market, that there are a couple of guys in this class that the Colts seem to be intrigued by, maybe a little bit more than Zach Hicks is. So, I mean, I have not been given clearance to give those names of the quarterbacks that we were given today, so I'm not going to say that. I will say from Destin Adams, a guy that I am higher on than most, I really like Matt Corral's game. I do. I think he's a guy who has the deep arm ability. I really like his ability outside the pocket to make plays still. Do I think he is a 100% lock to be a franchise quarterback by any means? No. Now, when I say I would take him in round 1, though, I think a thing with him right now is he's kind of fallen down boards a little bit. He's not going to perform at the combine. He wasn't at the Senior Bowl like some of these other guys. I think that 5th-year option is a valuable piece to gain. So, and history says that trading into the end of the first round to get a guy is not something that's very expensive. Just looking back at guys that have been traded for, Lamar Jackson, for example, is the most recent that comes to mind of a team trading into the end of the first round to get that 5th-year option. I think that could be a guy that I'd be interested in looking at there. He's a little undersized. People will say he's about 6'2". We've seen some guys that are shorter than him perform in the NFL still. I think he has the arm abilities. I think giving Frank Reich a rookie to work with is a interesting thing that I would be interested in seeing. Is this the best quarterback class for it to happen in? No, but as a Colts fan, we've kind of learned that luck is never on our side, ironically. And we just kind of have to roll with the punches a little bit. But I like Corral more than most people do, I will be honest. So I would not be upset at all if I saw on draft day that the Colts had performed some sort of trade up deal to get into the end of the first round for him.
So even after I said don't take my guy, he just goes ahead and takes.
I offered it multiple times for you to go. Zach heard it.
Okay, so Destin took my number 1.
Fighting over Matt Corral.
Destin took my guy. Zach took my other guy who I thought had some good game in him. Sam Howell. Brock Purdy. I'm just kidding. No.
I was like legit about to cancel the meeting. I was about to leave the meeting.
Was drafting Brock Purdy worse than trading a first for Irv Smith?
I think it was. Yeah.
Trading a first for Irv Smith is worse than drafting Purdy because you're drafting Purdy. It's like a 7.
Okay,
like,
7.
Fine.
Okay.
But trading a first for a guy coming off a second round pick guy coming off an ACL injury is interesting. That's interesting.
He's gonna be the GOAT tight end, man. Just you heard it here first.
Okay.
Hey, I love Big Irv, man. I love him. But one guy that does intrigue me. No, I'm not going Desmond Ridder. Although I am a fan. I did enjoy watching them this year. But I'm gonna go Carson Strong here. For a guy that makes a little bit of sense. He's got a little bit of good mobility. I think he'll be, probably a good third round option. Although I highly doubt he's gonna last till then. Like Destin always says, that positional value is always gonna drive guys to get drafted higher up in earlier rounds. But Carson Strong is a guy. If he's there in the third round, I'll take a flyer on him. Definitely. I mean, as long as it's an upgrade at backup, I'm all for it. I mean, get Sam's ass out of here. I don't know why he's a backup quarterback in the NFL. If Carson Strong can be had in the third round, boom, take him. I don't even care if we go grab Ian Book or Jake Fromm or something. Just upgrade my room.
Can we just stop with this blasphemous talk on their podcast? What's going on, Michael? This is like bad take number 10.
I agree with the Ellinger stuff that they need to upgrade that.
Hey, this is 3, not 10. All right, let's not.
I wouldn't say Ian Book or Jake Fromm would be upgrades.
Ian Book and Jake Fromm are bad enough comments to be single bad statements, by the way.
Just single them out to just count them as 2? Count them as 3? Okay. But Carson Strong is a guy that interests me a little bit. I think right now I just put like maybe a third round grade on him, mid-third round grade on him. I'm still kind of early in my draft stuff anyway, because I just got done wrapping up all this other NFL free agency trade market stuff. But that's where I'm going at the quarterback. Let's get to the wide receiver room, okay?
Just real quick about Strong, I guess. For me, the thing about him is if he gets a good medical this week, like this medical portion for him is going to be huge at the combine. Every doctor is going to get to see him. If he gets a solid medical at the combine, I don't think he'll be available in the third just via positional value again. Now, I mean, if he gets a poor medical, he could plummet. Like it could go anywhere like 4th to 5th round.
Yeah. One thing I will say about Strong is the Colts are notoriously one of those teams that grades really harsh on medicals more so than a lot of other teams. So like Todd Gurley, for instance, was a guy that they did not pass, that they would not have taken Todd Gurley back in the day regardless, because he's just, the medicals. And the Colts, it's always been a thing with this franchise, not just this GM, but all, other GMs as well. So I think that could be an interesting thing with Strong, where he could pass with flying colors at the combine, but still not with the Colts independent doctors. And one more thing I'll say about this quarterback class before we move on. I don't think I'm going to have a grade higher than the 3rd round pick on this class. I think all these guys are backups.
So this is interesting then. Who's QB1 though? Even if it's a 3rd round grade.
Ooh.
QB1.
It's tight between. So I got the high floor and the high ceiling guy. High floor is Pickett. I think Pickett's a really solid quarterback. I think at worst you're going to get a high end backup out of him, like a Teddy Bridgewater type out of him. And then Malik Willis is the other guy, and that's only because he's the only guy in this class where I look at him and I say, all right, he could be special. These other guys, I mean, if you tell like the best case scenario for Matt Corral, in my opinion, just to kind of go after your guys, is like a slightly better version than what we saw of Zach Wilson this past year. Like Matt Corral's feet are worse than Zach Wilson, and Zach Wilson's feet are some of the worst I've ever studied.
Don't tell Destin that.
Like I do not like Matt Corral, but I will say if you liked Zach Wilson last year, then you're going to like Matt Corral. They're very, very similar prospects to me. Except I don't think Matt Corral is as much of a wow prospect as Zach Wilson. But that's all my opinion. Quarterbacks, I'm just very, very low in this class. I just don't see much potential in a lot of these players. But if I had to pick one, it's either the high floor guy in Kenny Pickett or the high ceiling guy in Malik Willis.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely won't have a 1st round grade on a quarterback this year. Like I said, I'm higher on Matt Corral than most. He's quarterback 1 for me in this class. Things just scare me off the others. I think Malik Willis has one of the lower floors that I've ever studied, and that really concerns me there. I agree that he has a very high ceiling if everything lines up. I just think a lot of things have to line up. And then for Kenny Pickett, I like him as well. It's just I think his ceiling is lower than a portion where I would want to take him super high, like he's going to end up going in the first round probably. And I guess my thing is I think Matt Corral has a higher ceiling than Zach Wilson his rookie year. So, I mean, maybe that's where it just comes into play. And hey, that's me. And there's going to be disagreements when it comes to the draft. I liked Zach Wilson as a prospect a little bit. I think with the right coaching, a lot of his mistakes can be fixed. I think that's another thing I look at when I look at the draft. When I see what is wrong with these guys, for lack of a better word, the mistakes, the cons to these prospects, how many of them are coachable? And I guess to me, I see a lot of coachability in Corral's game, in Wilson's game this past year, if the right guy gets a hold of him. And I think Frank Reich is just one of those guys that if he can't help you in the league, you're probably in for some trouble in the NFL.
Poor Carson Wentz.
See, I feel much better saying, let's take Matt Corral and let's hope he develops with his, fundamentals, his mechanics and all that. I feel much better about that, like a 22-year-old Matt Corral, than I do a 30-year-old Carson Wentz. That's
something we can all agree on, I think, when it comes to quarterbacks here. I think
all right, so the headline for this episode, Zach Hicks loves Matt Corral. Okay, let's go.
right. For Corral, I really like the fact that when he's under duress, his eyes are always downfield. Watching a little bit of his Alabama tape, he was getting harassed that entire game, but his eyes stayed downfield. He delivered some solid throws, some solid shots. I really like his game a lot. I think he's got a little bit of a swagger to it. And when we trade for him next year, leading us to the Super Bowl, there's no bones about it. Okay. So, guys, here we go. Wide receivers. Pretty interesting room. Draft. Zach, I'm going to start with you, man. Who is the best fit in your mind for this team?
Yeah. So you guys know Build a Ballard is one of my running series that I've done for the last couple of years. And before the combine, I do kind of get a, the way you drank that water.
What happened?
It's a shame that Michael was on mute. So his face was not on the screen yet for everybody. The people listening just saw Zach have a stroke on air because of how Michael took a drink.
I mean, dude, he threw that back. I mean,
wait, hold on. Did I do it like this? Did I do it like?
Yes, that's exactly.
The talk about quarterbacks just got him just all hot and bothered. He needs some water.
I need some water.
So what I was saying was for Build a Ballard, even though I wait for combine testing, because combine testing is a huge part of that series, there are some guys who I could kind of circle beforehand as perfect fits for the Colts. And I don't think this guy's going to be there at 47, but he's a guy who I have 5 circles around because he's the perfect Ballard receiver, and it's George Pickens from Georgia. I mean, he has everything that Chris Ballard wants in receivers. He's explosive, he's big, he's physical. I mean, he is a pure dog. I mean, he's probably the best blocking receiver in this entire class. He's the type of receiver where if you're corner, you don't want to line up against him because he will make you pay for one to line up against him. And I think, when you stack all these guys and stack what they were, a couple years ago, or stack kind of the potential that all these guys have when it comes to receiver in this class, you'd be hard pressed to, say that George Pickens doesn't have the highest ceiling in this whole class at wide receiver. I mean, a couple of years ago, his tape was special, and he's been held back by bad quarterback play, and then obviously the ACL injury this past year. But George Pickens is the guy who I think once he lights up the combine, he'll probably sneak into that late first round range. But if he's there at 47, you run up and you put that card in, because there's not a better fit in this class at any position than George Pickens to the Colts with Chris Ballard's philosophy.
So George Pickens is having the best vertical jump this week.
I don't think it's going to be the best vertical jump, but it's going to be very good
for the wide receivers.
Size. Yeah, it's going to be very good. I mean, and then he said today that he is trying to run. He's planning on running in the 4.3s to low 4.4s. If he runs in that, he's going to go late first. If he gets below 4.5, he might go late first. But if he runs,
especially if a low run on quarterback goes round 1,
right?
If we only see 2 to 3 quarterbacks go round 1, just because the positional value teams are going to go on it, a lot of receivers are going to go.
I'm telling you, if he even runs like a 4.45, and you're sitting there as the Chiefs late first round, how do you not take him? Like that would just be malpractice not to take him. But if he is there at 47, even if he runs a 4.5, if he's there at 47, I want him in Indy. I think he's just the perfect fit for everything the Colts like out of their receivers.
Y'all see that insane leaping catch he had in the national championship game? That was beautiful.
I saw a few of them he did not in the national championship game.
So when a couple years ago before the injury and when he had better quarterback play, I mean, it was special. It was special stuff. I mean, we'd be talking number one receiver in this class if he doesn't get hurt. I think.
No love for Stetson Bennett.
So here's the thing. I mean, to go from a quarterback room that at one point had Justin Fields, Jacob Eason, Jake Fromm, to win the national championship with Stetson Bennett after all that is hilarious to me. It's just hilarious. But
I mean, they built one of the best defenses in the history of college football. So
yeah, I mean that helps. It helps. I was gonna for this route. I was gonna give one outside, one inside, just depending on how free agency goes, because I think they want to add a playmaker at both. It just kind of depends where free agency gets there. So I mean, I was gonna say Pickens on the outside. I love his game. I also think he's gonna end up going round one. For just a quote from some people, I was told this past week that I was an idiot because I have Pickens above David Bell currently in my
I have him way above David Bell. Not even close.
Hell yeah, dude.
I do as well.
I think Pickens is my wide receiver 4. Right now, I think Bell's my wide receiver 11 right now.
So Pickens is my receiver 5.
Yeah.
Bell is my receiver 9 right now. So I mean, there's still a solid gap. But I like Pickens' game a lot. I also agree. I just think he's a great fit to what Indy usually brings in the receiver room. And I mean, he's already used to playing with a guy like Stetson Bennett. I would like to say whoever the quarterback is for the Colts, somehow, some way, it's going to be an upgrade to what he dealt with this past year. And I agree. I think his ceiling is a lot higher than people were giving him credit for. If he's there in the second round, he's one of my guys that I would love to have. A guy who I think pre-injury probably goes top 20 is John Mechie. I think he's a guy who has that explosion you like. I think his route running is very crisp. He creates separation at a very high rate. He's a guy that I would love in the second round if they believe this injury is something that he recovers from 100%, which I think he will from everything I've read. And we'll see how far he drops because of that. But I think he's a guy who, once he gets healthy, that production could be outstanding if he's there in the second round.
I'm actually going to go the same route that Destin did, giving both inside and out. With the out, this is going to be like, I guess you could say, more realistic in the second round with David Bell. Really solid route runner, not the craziest athlete, which we all know, but hey, there was a lot of greats in the NFL that weren't the greatest athletes. But, when you turn on that Purdue film, those games against Ohio State, all those games, you see something. So I think taking him, that would be a great one right there, how he could develop. It's not official yet, but possibly getting into a room led by Reggie Wayne could be really beneficial. And another guy, y'all are never going to guess this name or even thought of this name, but I really liked watching him this year for Utah, and that's Britton Covey, a guy who 5'8", 170, a guy who's really speedster. Watching his college tape kind of reminds me a little bit of, what do I want to say? Maybe a Julian Edelman, Wes Welker type guy who's going to be found like in the 6th, 7th. I would take him in the 6th, 7th round. I think he can be really solid. Just because he's getting taken in the 6th round doesn't mean he can't turn into a really nice player. I think when it comes to a speedster, I would take it later. A big guy is who I want to target at the higher rounds, but Britton Covey, nice feet, nice hands, solid route runner, a little bit off, but, can't block a soul, but I would definitely take him.
So would you rather take him at that 6th round pick or trade it for Andy Isabella?
Ooh. Or take Brock Purdy with it. I mean,
don't get me started on Brock Purdy, man.
Or package it for next year's first for Irv Smith. Lots of options. Lots of options there. I do want to allow Zach, if he wants, to offer an inside receiver option since we both gave 2.
Wandel Robinson for sure. I love Wandel Robinson. Huge fan. I think he's I think he's arguably the most electric player. I think if you missed out on Kadarius Toney last year, Wandel Robinson's a great consolation prize this year. And I actually think Robinson's better down the field. I mean, we saw he went from Nebraska, I believe, to Kentucky and got a real quarterback in Will. I think it's called Will Levis or Levis. I think it's Levis. He actually corrected me on that. So I'm trying
Levis,
to,
yeah.
I think it's Levis. Wandel told me after when I interviewed him, he was like, make sure you say Levis. But Wandel Robinson, I mean, he goes there 1,300 yards, one of the best receivers in all of college football. Just a great season. I think he's going to be a player where, you could line up in the backfield on some plays. You could put him in the slot. You could put him outside and have him play like a Z position. Super versatile player. Wandel Robinson's a guy who I'm going to be much higher on than most people. I'm a big fan.
Let's get into the tight ends. This is going to be the position that leads us to the championship. I will say tight end is very important in Frank Reich's system. I've been advocating for a tight end for a while. Now, Zach, let me start with you, man. No one take my guy, okay? No one.
Why do you never go first?
I'm starting this thing. No, I'm starting this thing off, all right? My dream tight end selection is not going to be who you think it is, Destin, even though we've talked about him. But give me Josh Wiley, man. Give me Josh Wiley from Cincinnati. Solid third, fourth round pick, whichever where you want to go. I think he was solid at Cincinnati, given the quarterback he was playing with. Solid route runner, developing as a blocker, nice hands. They'll succeed at the NFL level. Get him in the room. I'll take him over Mo Alley Cox, of course. Good athleticism. I'll take him. Give me some Josh Wiley. I loved him. Definitely paid attention to Cincinnati because I wanted to see the underdog story, watch the game against Indiana, Notre Dame, of course, Alabama, created some separation, of course, the championship game, all that stuff. So Josh Wiley there. I feel accomplished. No one took my guy.
He wasn't even on my radar, so
I'm still leading the show. Zach, where are you going with this?
So this is a guy who was kind of under the radar for the longest time, and then Dane Brugler comes out the last couple of days saying that he's a top 5 tight end in the class. And I'm like, come on, Dane, taking it from me. But Cade Otten from Washington, huge fan of this game. I think he has a case to be the best blocker in this entire class, while also kind of being, and this is actually what my colleague on the KC draft guide said to me, Jake Morley. He said that it's kind of very Jason Witten-like with how he understands how to sit in zones, how to get open underneath, and able to find those empty spaces to create, extra yards. And I think when you get a guy who's a great blocker, who can get open, who can find those extra spaces in the zone, if the Colts do lose Jack Doyle, I think that's the perfect replacement. He's not going to test at the combine, and I think that's going to be a little worrisome because he is a little banged up right now. So we don't know how good of an athlete he really is, but on film, I think, in this kind of, I don't want to say it's a weak tight end class. It's kind of a very mid-level tight end class. I think in my opinion, he has the argument for tight end 1. Rucker might be my number 1 tight end, but Otten is right up there. I'm a big fan of Cade Otten.
So I was gonna say Cade Otten. Zach had to take him. He's actually my tight end 3 currently. And I saw Dane came out with his report as well. Made me feel smart, but then also made me feel I wish I would have released my rankings earlier than his so I could feel smarter.
Right.
But doesn't happen. Not the perfect timing. The guy I was going to talk about was Jeremy Rucker from Ohio State, who I have as tight end 2 right now. I think he is a guy who has shown on tape his blocking ability already. And I feel like that's just something the Colts have prioritized a little bit. They want a guy that's already willing to block. I mean, Eric Ebron's one of the exceptions that I've seen, that he just comes in and has no interest blocking. But I mean, I feel like everyone else that's been in the tight end room since is a guy that at least understands the importance of blocking. And I think he already, in my opinion, Rucker to me is the best of these tight ends blocking wise up top. So I think he is who I would go. I think he also offers a lot as a pass catcher as well. And again, if Jack Doyle is going to be gone, a big thing for me is you're going to have to find a guy other than Pittman that you go to on those third down type plays. I mean, I feel like Jack Doyle has just been that blanket no matter the quarterback. I mean, we're going on quarterback 5 this next year. The last 4 have used Jack Doyle pretty heavily on that third down. He's just been that guy for quarterbacks here. So we got to find someone that can do that. And I think Jeremy Rucker could step right in.
Yeah, and I will say about Jeremy Rucker, if you want to see a game where his blocking is really on display, turn on that Purdue game and see some of those blocks he does on George Karlaftis. Whew.
Made him look average.
Well, most games make him look average, but especially on that one.
Purdue fans listening right now are turning off the show, Zach.
I know. I said David Bell is my wide receiver 11, and now Karlaftis my edge 7. Like, oof.
That was the first strike. The first strike was Bell, and then now they've turned it off. They're not even listening to this argument.
I'm trying to think of Purdue guys I like. I like some of the Indiana guys. But no.
Hey, man. When we're talking, great stuff going on the show, guys. Zach Hicks joining us. We got to get into these edge rushers. All right, the best fit for this one, and I'm holding on to my guy. I'm gonna let Destin start this one off. All right, Destin, best edge fit, whether it fits in the 1st or the 7th round. Where are you going, man? Are you trading into the 1st? Are you staying pat at 2nd? What are you thinking here?
Well, you definitely cannot trade into the 1st for an edge rusher. Not this year if you're the Colts. I mean, you just spent 2 back-to-back picks, 1st round, 2nd round on your edge rusher room. You're most likely going to hopefully sign one, probably bring back 1 or 2 as well. I don't think the 1st round is where you're going to spend it. It's just tough because I think a lot of these guys that I like could end up swinging into the end of the 1st round just because of the positional value and because so little quarterbacks are going to go. Rashad's not here, so I'm going to mention his favorite guy just to speak on him. Jermaine Johnson had an incredible Senior Bowl.
He's going to go high.
The dude was fantastic. Exactly. The dude was fantastic. I think before the Senior Bowl probably would have been talked about a lot in that 2nd round. If he fell into the 3rd, no, some people wouldn't be surprised, but it was possible before the Senior Bowl. I think he's going to end up going round 1 now as well, but I think he's electric when he's on the field. Oh, man, it just seems like a lot of these edge guys I could talk about I think are going to end up going round 1. I really liked Boy Malfa before the Senior Bowl. I think he's great now. I mean, we had his trainer on with us a couple weeks ago, getting to talk to him. Yeah, we had Eddie.
Eddie.
We had Eddie.
Eddie's a good friend of mine.
We had Eddie McGilver on talking about his guys, and he had so much to talk about. A lot of these Michigan guys, of course, but Boy Malfa, he was so excited to talk about the guy, and we watched the Senior Bowl, and we see why. The dude just pops off the line of scrimmage. He's a guy that if he was in round 2, even though I don't think they take an edge rusher at all in that round 2 spot, he's a guy that if they took, I'd have a hard time being upset with it.
Yeah. I think it's going to be somewhere in that 3 to 5 range if they do take an edge rusher. And I think they only really do so if they move on from Toure and Ben Banogu. Then they might try to draft like another young guy who will actually play off a smaller guy who will actually play. And I'll say my favorite guy in that kind of 3 to 4 range is Tyric Smith from Ohio State. I'm super, super high on Tyric Smith. I came away from and from everything that people told me, like this past year was not his best year. And I watched a couple of his games from this past season. I came away really, really blown away. I think the way that he turns the corner for a 260-pound guy is rare. I think he's got really good hands. I think he's not a great run defender, but he's a solid run defender. I think there's a lot of good things on his film, and I actually gave him, I think, an early 2 on my grading. So I'm a big fan. And then one guy I'll say on day 3, and this guy, I will say, you guys can hold me to this. Because it's going to happen, is Jeffrey Gunter from Coastal Carolina. He's going to blow up the combine. Absolutely blow up the combine. We're talking freaky athlete. It's going to be a really good week for him, and I think he'll leave this week, a lot higher on a lot of people's boards than what he was coming in. But he's a guy who I think I gave a late 3, early 4 to, and I think he's a guy who the Colts could be pretty interested in.
So this will need to get clipped. So I'm going to get a prediction out of you then. What do you think his RAS ends up being in the range of?
I think it'll be over 9. I think it'll be like low 9s. I don't think it'll be like absurdly high, like elites. Like, no, we're not talking Jeremy Chin at safety here, like 10s across the board. But I do think it'll be low 9s. I think, rough guess, like 4.6 40 at almost 260 pounds. I think he'll jump high 30s in the vert. I think he'll have a really good broad. And honestly, I think his 3-cone will probably be low 7s as well. So I think it's going to be a really good week for him.
Yeah, shout out at MathBomb on Twitter and all the RAS work he does. Just an incredible feature of the draft cycle that people have learned to get into. We'll make sure to have to clip this and let you look at it later and see how smart you look.
Man, I hope he doesn't run like a 4.9. Like he gets hurt and he runs like a 4.9 and jumps like 10 inches or something.
Yeah, we won't be the one that clips it. Somebody else that hates you will clip it. Maybe a kicker in the NFL. Maybe
a George Karlaftis fan will clip it and so most of draft Twitter, I guess.
George Karlaftis. I remember watching him his freshman year and thought, hey, there could be some good things, and then just never truly developed.
Right. There's the T-Rex out there, man. And He turns like a monument.
Yeah. I didn't see too much athleticism his freshman year. I thought he did good for a freshman, but just never saw any development over there. So my guy, I will be ecstatic. I will be okay if we maybe not be okay. Well, probably, yeah, because I love defense. I would love if we take this guy over left tackle and wide receiver. Give me Myjai Sanders. Give him to me. Come on. I need them all. I need all
the Cincinnati players.
Give me all the right.
If you're not starting Desmond Ritter.
Wait, hold on. I've named Josh Wiley. Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't want to go with the obvious one with tight ends with Isaiah Likely. I mean, that's my number one guy, and Desmond will tell you he's the in Indy. Beautiful. But anyway, with Sanders, he really surprised me in that game against Alabama. He had a good game against Evan Neal. I did not expect him to set the edge that he did. He held his ground, aggressive. He used his hands pretty well. His first step, he beat him off the edge a few times. Actually, quite a few times. I really like his game. His hand usage is awesome. Give me all the edge rushers, man. I mean, please give me the edge rush. Even if you, like Zach said, move off Bandigood, move off Toure, move off Lewis, and you gave me Sanders. Things are looking up, man. Things are looking up, and I would love it all the way. And I know I did kind of mention 2 Cincinnati players, but if I had to go another one, I mean, another
if
one
you
that I'm
had to go another one. No one's asking.
No,
yeah.
Desmond Ritter is who you're going to go with the other one. Right?
Desmond, right. The quarterback is not working out. He's athletic enough for an edge rusher anyway. Alec Pierce can be edge rusher, but I really like Sanders' game. He's kind of, I guess you could say, my dream edge rush pick if we were to have one, but realistically, I don't think you really go there. You got too many needs across the board. Like you said, safety, you mentioned that, Zach, corner, wide receiver, left tackle. Hey, Chris Ballard says, to my core, you went up front. So he will prove that by taking Sanders over David Bell, I guess, right?
I guess he would technically prove that if he did that.
And you would still suffer at the wide receiver room. So, guys, it was a pretty good show. Do we have any other closing remarks?
I'm all good.
Matt Corral, quarterback 1. I'm going to get Zach Hicks a jersey.
Matt Corral, quarterback. I don't know. I haven't stacked the quarterbacks yet. Maybe quarterback 4 or 5 for me.
4 or 5. Man. Where's Brock Purdy at?
Wherever I ranked the USFL last year. He's exactly where I ranked Ian Book last year.
See, I would give Brock Purdy a 3rd round grade in the USFL draft next year.
USFL.
Don't they do quarterback in just the 1st round?
Yeah, I thought they just do positional rounds.
This was the like the startup league. I think every other year will be a little different. I think they'll get more to a normal pace now that the teams have been formed. Brock Purdy will go in round 3 in the USFL league next year. Really compete as a really good backup over there next year.
Honestly, you know how you make the difference between Brock Purdy and Sam Ehlinger. You know how you make that difference? Who can throw who can throw a more accurate 5-yard out?
Oh, 5-yard out.
Probably Purdy, honestly.
Yeah,
Ehlinger can't get the ball to the outside.
I'll take Purdy. I like it. Anyways,
we're just
guys,
basically testing to see who's still here at this point.
Guys, let's go ahead and wrap it up. Zach, man, where can we find you? And of course, again, I need you to sign my book next year at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, you guys can find me on Twitter at Zach Hicks too. You can find my work over at Sports Illustrated with SI Colts. And then we have a draft guide. We have a nice little indie draft guide. It's going to be over 200 written scouting reports. There's going to be rankings at each position. There will be exclusives in there. Like I'm going to have interviews with Indy-born prospects. So prospects that are born in Indiana, I'm going to be interviewing them and asking them about the Colts and stuff like that. So some really cool exclusives in there for you guys. So I think it's $8.99 right now. You can go over to my Twitter and you'll see it in the pinned tweet. I just had to throw that little promo out there, but I appreciate you guys having me on. And, it's always fun talk with y'all and talking draft.
Destin, tell the fans why Big Irv is coming to Indy.
Yeah, that's all I got about that. I do want to shout out Fansided. Thank you for everybody over there. Here at the Blue Stable, we are the official Colts podcast of Fansided. And if you heard all the Irv Smith talk today, I apologize.
You ain't gonna apologize when he's got 7 for $180 in the Super Bowl and winning us a championship, Destin.
Good night, everybody.
All right, guys. He is Zach Hicks. He is Destin Adams. I am Michael Pevia. Thank you for following along. Thank you for listening in. Make sure you're subscribed and liking this video as well, guys. We will see you later.